You're listening to the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Jehan, we finally reached the end of Cricket Ramblings episode. We're at the last topic. It's been a long one. It's been a marathon. It's been nearly 3 hours.
Yeah.
So we've been talking for a very long time, which has been enjoyable as always. So this episode will have to be a multi-part episode, I'm guessing again. Often is the case where we chat, Jehan, about cricket. But hey,
I think when you have two cricket tragics talking about cricket, it's always going to overrun what you think it's going to be initially.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly true, and that's what's happened here. So we're just going to go with the flow, and just go with it, I suppose, as you do in the game of cricket. Just go with it. Why not? But to round out this Cricket Ramblings episode today, Jehan, we talk about the Sri Lanka and Australia Test series and talk about the ODIs to follow the tests as well in readiness for the Champions Trophy. But obviously, Australia touring Sri Lanka. They were last there in 2022. They won a test match and Sri Lanka won 1. So they drew the series 1-1, which wasn't a bad result at the time. But they haven't won a test series, Australia and Sri Lanka, since 2011. They won that series 1-0. And obviously, we remember Nathan Lyon debuting at Galle in the first test. He took 5 for 34 in the first innings. And he got Kumar Sangakkara out, first ball in test cricket, which is not a bad scalp to have. And also Trent Copeland debuted in that series as well, which is often forgotten. And didn't play much test cricket for Australia, Trent Copeland, but very good commentator on the game. And obviously both teams playing for the Warne Muralitharan Trophy, which has only been around since 2007-8. And that was the test series in Australia, which Australia won 2-0 in the best of 2 in that series back in 2007-8. Obviously named after two great spinners in Warne and Murali. Australia won it 4 times, and Sri Lanka have won it once. And that was back in 2016 in Sri Lanka, where they won 3-0, which wasn't a great tour for Australia back then. As we mentioned before, Jehan, that this series isn't important for Australia. Well, every test series is important. Let's not forget that. But in terms of World Test Championship, it's not important because they've already qualified for the final against South Africa at Lords. And they secured that because they won the last test against India. If they didn't win that last test against India, then this series would have been a very important series to win. But that pressure is off their shoulders. There's 2 test matches, both of them at Galle. January the 29th is the first test, and then February the 6th is the second. And then after the test series, there's 2 ODIs, both played at the Premadasa Stadium in Colombo on the 12th and the 14th of February in preparation for Champions Trophy, which is happening next month in the UAE and Pakistan for that tournament. Australia have selected a pretty experienced squad mixed in with some new guys, of course. Obviously, you've got Smith, Head, Carey, Inglis, Khawaja, Constas, Labuschagne, Abbott, Connolly, McSweeney, Webster, Boland, Kuhneman, Lyon, Murphy, and Stark. Smith, Khawaja, Head, and Carey, and Stark and Lyon were a part of the 2022 series. Pat Cummins is not here. He's on parental leave because he's expecting his second child with his partner, of course. And we wish Pat all the best. Deserves a rest anyway, Pat, because he captained pretty well in the series against India. So he deserves to put up his feet, I suppose. And obviously injury concerns to Smith with the elbow, Kuhneman with the right thumb. Both of them have been cleared, which is good. Good news. Obviously Steve Smith to captain. We've got Constas and Connolly, the young blood. First tour to Sri Lanka for both of them, along with Bo Webster as well. So the young blood there, Constas and Connolly, probably will get a go in this series. It depends where the selectors go with that. So it is shaping up to be a series that Australia will be looking forward to win, Jehan, in terms of trying to win their first series in Sri Lanka since 2011. So it's going to be very important for them to score runs with the bat, of course, and they need to combat Sri Lanka's spinners, especially Pradap Jayasuriya, who took 12 wickets on debut in 2022 in that second test. And we all know what happened there. And that's where Chandimal scored 200. And Sri Lanka were able to pile on the runs in that second test. And Australia lost that second test, but drew the series. You would think Nathan Lyon would be the key, of course, in these conditions, being the experienced spinner. Also, Mitchell Starc being experienced in these conditions in terms of reverse swing and his pace in these subcontinental conditions, especially in Sri Lanka. And he has a pretty good record in Sri Lanka. Starc, he took 11 wickets in 2016 in that test match in Colombo. So that's a brief summary of this test series between Sri Lanka and Australia. So Jehan, your thoughts on the test series between Sri Lanka and Australia? Who do you think is going to win? Who do you think is going to make a big impact in this series if Australia are going to win this time?
So can I just check? Cameron Green's not in the squad, is he? He hasn't made it.
No, Cameron Green's not in the squad. Neither is Josh Hazlewood. And no Pat Cummins. So Cameron Green is still recovering from his back injury, but he should be back before World Test Championship final in that period of time. So he's on the comeback trail.
Yeah. I think this is a perfect opportunity for Australia to win a series or win the series in Sri Lanka. Obviously, 2016 was a horrendous series under Smith's captaincy. The batting was just really poor in that series. Mitchell Starc stood up with the ball. And then the previous series, when was that? 2022, I think?
Yeah, 2022.
They started off well in the first test on Raging Turner. To beat Sri Lanka at their own game, so to speak, with their spinners. But then they came unstuck in the second test match.
Yeah, they lost by an innings and 39 runs in that second test.
Yeah, after they started off quite well as well. I think Steve Smith got a comeback 100 after a long time, and
I think he made 145 not out.
I think Marnus
Labuschagne scored 100 as well.
100 as well, yeah. And they were 320 for 3 or 4 at the end of day one and just sort of fell away after that the next day. And then as the wicket flattened out, Chandimal got stuck in. I think they had him out and didn't review it or something like that. They had him out once or twice and it didn't wasn't given out for some reason. Either they didn't review it, or it was a poor umpiring decision. I can't remember exactly, but he was out early on, but went on to score 200. And by the time
not out,
and then they got a big lead. By the time Australia came back to bat, the ball was turning a little bit, and then they struggled against Prabhat Jayasuriya. But I think this is going to be a really good opportunity for them. They definitely have the spinners. I think the batting lineup has got a lot more experience now. The likes of Travis Head and Marnus Labuschagne. Khawaja's got a lot of experience playing in the subcontinent now at this stage of his career. And Steve Smith coming back into form can only be a good thing. So I think they have a great chance of winning this series. But it's a 2-test series and they have to be consistent throughout those 2 test matches. They can't afford to have a bad day or a bad 2 or 3 sessions where things get away with them with the ball, or if they start collapsing against the spinners with the bat. It's not going to be easy. I'm pretty sure that first test match is going to be a Raging Turner. That's what Sri Lanka will serve up straight away. And generally when that backfires, then they try to change things around for the second test match. So I'm predicting that's what will happen again this time. Yeah, and in terms of spinners, I think they're probably slightly favouring Cooper Connolly ahead of Kuhneman because Connolly can bat. So with his lower order batting, I think they're probably going to go with him. I think Travis Head needs a bowler of overs, especially if the ball's ragging. Obviously, Nathan Lyon. I think probably they can probably go in with one pace bowler if Bo Webster's going to be able to back Mitchell Stark up. It's probably not a bad thing that Pat Cummins is resting for this series, to be honest, because I think in these conditions, Stark may be the better option. Bo Webster apparently bowls spin as well, but he hasn't done that. He hasn't done so for the last 2 or 3 Shield seasons. But maybe if they were to call on his off spin, he may be able to do a job. Sri Lanka beat New Zealand recently quite fairly comprehensively. So look, I think it's not going to be an easy task, but I definitely think that if Australia put their minds to it, I think they should be able to win the series.
Yeah, definitely. They've got a lot of players with experience in the subcontinent. Of course, you got Smith, Head, and Carey, and Kawata have played a lot. Labuschagne, Mitchell Stark, obviously Lyon. Not so much with obviously McSweeney, Webster, Boland. Kuhneman and Murphy played in India in 2022 and did okay there. Sean Abbott hasn't played at all. Connolly the same. So they've got
Sean Abbott was an interesting selection.
Yeah, he was. I suppose they just needed a backup option, really, in terms of another pace bowler, I think.
Is Boland in the squad?
Yeah, you got Scott Boland there. You've also got Sean Abbott as that all-round option, I suppose. He can bat a bit, and he's proven that over the years, Sean. But you would think Australia would go in with spin dominance. I think the last series they had Pat Cummins and Mitchell Stark play in the same team. And then they had Mitchell Swepson and Lyon as spin options. So I think they learned a lot from that previous tour that, we know what to expect on these types of pitches. We're going to have a spin-heavy attack, and I think that's the right way to go. And if you can have Bo Webster do a Colin Miller type thing where he can bowl pace and spin, that will help dramatically. Mitchell Stark's abilities, of course. He only took 5 wickets in the last series. He took 4 for 89. And that was his best bowling figures. Took 5 wickets for the series. Nathan Lyon took 11 for the 2 test matches. He's got a 5 for, of course. I don't know which test match that was. I think it was the first or second test, one of the two. And Travis Head picked up 4 wickets. He picked up the 4 for 10 in the first inning. The first test, didn't he? And that's where the celebration of the finger and the cup of ice came from. And did that celebration when he got Richard Barnes out, didn't he, in Melbourne? For that
seemed to offend a few people.
Yes, but you had to understand the context behind it. So I think that's why people were unsure about that celebration. But the context behind it was because of that bowling performance in Sri Lanka, where he got those 4 wickets for 10.
So I'm just having a look at the scores. So Nathan Lyon took a 5 for in the first innings of the first test match.
Yeah.
So they bowled them out for 200.
Bowled them out for 212 in that first test in that series. And then Australia made 321. And then Sri Lanka were bowled out for 113 in the last inning.
I think this series is going to take a very similar course to the last one.
You would think so. It probably will follow a similar pattern, like you would think.
The teams are pretty similar as well, aren't they? I mean, the teams haven't really changed that much since then.
No, you would think Sri Lanka. I don't think Sri Lanka have announced their squad yet. You would think it would be similar to what it was in 2022. Maybe some new faces in there, probably.
Yeah.
But pretty much the core group will be the same for Sri Lanka. So I agree with that. Probably the series will probably follow a similar pattern to what we saw in 2022. I think if Australia can bat, they batted okay in the last series. They scored over 364, and that was in the second test in response to Sri Lanka's 554. Who batted second? Sorry, in that test, Australia batted first. And they made 321 in the first test, which was good enough to win that first test.
321 on that raging Turner, but on the good wicket when it was good in the second test match, they collapsed from 300 for 2 or 3 to...
Yeah, that's right, they did, and they were able to pick up.
That's where they lost the match. They should have really gone on to get 400, 450. Yeah, so they can't afford to make those mistakes again this time.
When Smith got run out by Kawasha, was that the first or second test? I'm trying to remember now.
I think that was the first test match from memory, actually.
Yeah. Well, let's hope it's not the case again when Smith's going for his 10,000 run.
Because, I'm pretty sure that was the first test because Smith was out of runs for a long time and looking for 100.
Yes, that's right.
And he got run out stupidly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the first test. But thankfully, Cameron Green got 77. Carey got some runs. Khawaja got 71. So I think the other thing is Australia hold, as you say, all the test trophies against every other nation. But when it comes to away wins, this team still hasn't won in England and India, but the team hasn't won in those countries for 20 years or so. They haven't won in South Africa. And then Sri Lanka and Bangladesh are the other ones. So
the only other country they won in is Pakistan in 2022, which they won 1-0.
The one in Pakistan, one in, I suppose they've won in the West Indies, but that was a long time ago, about 10 years ago, but they haven't been there since.
Well, they will be this year in 2025.
They've got to maintain that record. They won in New Zealand a few times since in the last few years. So look, if they can win in Sri Lanka, and then India and England are still a fair bit off, so the team may have changed a little bit by then. But it would be good to maintain that record. They've only lost 2 series in Sri Lanka.
They haven't played much in Sri Lanka against Sri Lanka. They haven't played much in general. They've only been playing since the 80s. Where they
99 was the first time they lost in Sri Lanka, and that was like a heavily rain affected series. So I think they lost the first match, and then the second 2 got rained off. And then obviously the horrendous tour in 2016. Those are the only 2 times that they've lost in Sri Lanka or against Sri Lanka. Actually, they've never lost to Sri Lanka at home in a test match or a series.
No, but they have lost a series against Sri Lanka, and that was back in 2016, as you said, when they lost 3-0. So that's the only series that Sri Lanka have won against Australia. Other than that, Australia have been pretty dominant, as you would expect.
No, they won in 99 as well, so that they've won 2.
No, that's right. Yeah, my mistake.
But also Smith was the captain in 2016, so he's going to be acting captain this time. So maybe some unfinished business for him.
Probably memories of 2016 still linger in Smith's mind, but he'll be thinking about scoring that one single to bring up 10,000 runs in Test cricket.
I'm pretty sure that he scored a lot of runs in that series, but it was just the team overall, like the rest of the team didn't perform at all. It was just him.
No, they really struggled in that tour. It was not very good viewing, but yeah, Smith scored runs in 2016, and Mitchell Starc took wickets with the ball. Obviously, 11 wickets in that game in Colombo at the sports ground there. So yeah,
but I think if they win this series, I think it will be a significant achievement because it's an away series in foreign conditions and without their regular captain as well. And also, you could say when there hasn't been a lot sort of riding on it either, given the fact that they're already in the WTC final.
so you still want to win the series, of course. You know,
no,
you still want to win. So
yeah, of course. So yeah, that's why I think it would be great if they're able to achieve it. It's not going to be easy though. Sri Lanka at home, they'll throw everything they can at them. The spinners will be difficult. Yeah. So, but the thing is, I unless they're playing on ridiculous pitches, I think this will be a good series to watch. You know, Australia trying to battle it out in these sort of spinning foreign conditions, and if they're successful, it will be good to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. It will be an interesting series to watch. It will probably follow a similar pattern as we've already said about the series in 2022. Will probably be the same again in 2025. If Australia draw the series and bad result, like in 2022, that's not bad. But if they want to win the series, they have to win both test matches to win outright, which is achievable. They can do that. It's just whether or not they can execute. So it'll be very important to score runs in the first innings, probably 350 minimum at least, to be competitive and be in the contest. And really with the ball, just to put Sri Lanka under pressure. If they can, tie them down with the spin and Starc gets a few wickets and contributes there, and he's been bowling really well, Mitchell Starc. Then I think Australia can take 20 wickets and do that. There's no doubt they can take 20 wickets. I think you can do that in the series, given the nature of the surfaces.
Yeah.
Whether or not Australia can execute, that's another thing. So whether, you need Smith, Labuschagne scoring runs, you need Khawaja to, he's improved against spin dramatically. Travis Head, whether he will open or not, it's another question. Then you've got Constas and Connolly potentially playing as well. How they're going to go? They haven't played in Sri Lanka before. You got Carey who can make runs down the order, and then the tail enders, can they score runs as well? You haven't got Pat Cummins there, but Mitchell Starc's got a Test 99 in India. I know that's a different country, but still, he can hold the bat in these conditions if he can. So it's just whether or not Australia can execute.
What do you think about Travis Head opening? Is that going to be a good option, or do you think they should stick with?
Well, we tried that in India, did we?
Yeah.
And it sort of worked, I think. I think that's why when people said he was, why was he dropped? What was it for the third? Was it the first test he was dropped?
It was the first test match, yeah.
Yeah. And then people said, why was he dropped for that first test? Well, because he had problems against spin, but then he came back, didn't he?
Well, it's because he had a run tour in Sri Lanka. He didn't know how to play Prabhath Jayasuriya.
Pretty much. Yeah. What did he average in that series in Sri Lanka? Let me have a look. He didn't score many runs, I know that, Travis said. I've got the list in front of me here. I'm just trying to find his name. Oh, here we go. He only got 23 runs, high score of 12, average of 7.
Yeah. Okay. And that's not great.
No, but he did better with the ball, I suppose.
Yeah, he got
those 4 wickets for 10. But he played in that third test in Indore, which was a tricky pitch in that series against India, and I think he batting with Labuschagne in that run chase, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
And he got Australia home, and Australia won that test. Did he score a 50? I think he did.
There was one match was the one where they collapsed in Delhi, where the evening before, he went off like a train and got 50 or 60 odd. And then they came back the following day, and then he got out fairly early on, and then Australia just collapsed after that. That's when they got obsessed with doing the sweeps and reverse sweeps.
Yes, and that's where they got undone. And then they won that test in indoor, and then obviously the last test in Ahmedabad was a pretty flat deck, and that was a drawn test. Going back to Travis Head opening the batting, I think it makes sense because of the new ball. You want to score runs quickly and get off to a good start, I suppose. But if it ain't broken,
sorry to interrupt. I'm just having a look at that scorecard from Delhi.
Yeah,
and it's interesting. He didn't open in the first innings, but he did in the second innings. So Warner and Khawaja opened in the first innings, and so Australia got 263, Hanscom got 72 not out, and then India were actually 134-6, and then got another 100 runs because they couldn't get Axar Patel and Nashwin out. So Australia had a lead of 1, and then the next day, towards the end of the day, Khawaja opened with Head for some reason. I'm not sure what happened to Warner. Warner didn't bat at all. Oh, that must have been when he broke his arm. He hurt his elbow or something.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
And he had to bat down the order. Yeah.
Yeah. So Head came in to open. He got 43 quick fire time, and then he got out the next day, and then they literally went down like 10 pins. So they were 65 for 2, bowled out for 113. 7 wickets to Jadeja. 3 to
Yes, it wasn't a memorable test by any means for Australia and Delhi at the Arun Jaitley Stadium, as it's known, or the Fashion Kotla by its other name.
It's all going to come down to how they play the spinners in the series.
Yeah, it is. The bowling side of things is pretty good. You've got Nathan Lyon and co, which can do the job. So no problems with the bowling. They've got a lot of options. You've got, in the spin department, you've got Marnus, you've got Head himself. Obviously, Smith won't bowl, obviously. He may have... You never know, but he's got that elbow complaint, so he may just want to just stand at slip. So they've got a lot of options, Australia, with the bowling side of things, which is pretty good. The batting, very important to combat the spin, especially if Pradap Jayasuriya is going to have another series like he did in 2022. Just do the basics, really, of playing spin, get to the pitch of the ball. If you can get it on the full, that's good. So the pitch, so the ball doesn't have a chance to spin on the surface if it lands there. Get it on the full and try and work it in the gaps, build a partnership, rotate strike, play with the spin, not against the spin. There'll be a lot of sweep shots played, a lot of reverse sweeps, paddles. Probably don't overdo it like they did in Delhi, for example. Keep it simple. And just do the basics, really. And just, the rest will take care of itself. So as long as Australia do that, then, they're a good chance of being competitive at least and probably winning a test or two in the series. But they should take some solace from the last series, knowing that we were able to score 300 runs in an innings. But they need to score more than that. But 350 minimum at least in the first innings. If they're batting first, 400, that's a good result. If they're batting second, at least, try and get to parity of some sort if they can. And then make it hard for Sri Lanka, because that third innings becomes a one-innings shootout, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If that happens. So if they can do that, if they can pressure Sri Lanka with the bat and with the ball, will be important. Take the chances, of course. You're going to have Steve Smith, who's going to be at slip. Have your best slip fielder at slip, especially to the spinners. And we all know what Smith can do. The in-close fielding is going to be important. They've been practicing that in Dubai before they came out to Sri Lanka. There were some pictures of them practicing in close fielding, which is going to be crucial against spin in those conditions. So they've got a good chance, Australia. And I think, if they can tighten up a few areas and look from the last series where they need to improve on, then I think they could win the series in the end. So that comes to the predictions for the series, Jehan. So pretty much, who do you think is going to win the series? Leading run scorer, leading wicket taker. So your thoughts on that, Jehan? First of all, who do you think is going to win the series?
I think Australia are going to win. Yeah.
So Australia to win 2-0.
Yeah, it's either going to be 1-0 or 2-0. Yeah, I'll say 2-0. Win both test matches.
Well, I don't think there's going to be a draw. I don't think. If there's rain in Gaul, you never know. There may be a tropical storm coming. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I'd say 1-0 is if first test is a raging turner and then they just produce a flat wicket for the second one and just flattens out. But
yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, I'm going to say 2-0 Australia. Yeah, what's new with my predictions?
Well, yeah, that's pretty standard. For me, I'm going to say, I don't know, probably 1-1. I think, like last time. I think there could be a similar pattern to what we had in 2022. But I hope Australia win. But judging by what happened last time, probably 1-1 in that series. In 2022, probably the same in 2025, but we won't know until the series is completed. So leading run scorer, Jehan, who do you think is going to be the leading run scorer of the series?
I'm going to say Steve Smith because I just feel like he's getting back to his best. At his best, he is the best player of spin in the Australian side. Yeah, so I'm going to go with Steve Smith.
That's a pretty good shout. For me, well, you've got some important players there for Australia. You've got Labuschagne, you've got Smith, you've got Khawaja, you've got Head to choose from. So I would go with Smith as well. I think if Australia are going to have a big series, he's got to be the one to lead from the front as captain as well. So I think Smith to obviously A, score his 10,000 run, which he will do, and B, to be the leading run scorer of the series. So let's hope that prediction comes true. And last but not least, Jehan, leading wicket taker. Who do you think is going to... This should be a straightforward one, I think. Leading wicket taker.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Nathan Lyon.
Yeah, same with me. Nathan Lyon. Gaz to, pick up, probably 10 plus wickets in the series. He's going to be important in terms of Australia winning the series.
Well,
he has a pretty good record in Sri Lanka.
He does. He's obviously got memories of his first fifer and wicket off his first ball, which happened to be, I think it was Kumar Sangakkara.
Yeah, caught a slip by new induction into the Hall of Fame for Australia, Michael Clark.
Yeah, and also, the other thing is he didn't really have to do a lot in the series against India.
No, so he's pretty fresh, raring to go. He's going to bowl a lot of overs. So
he wasn't really he didn't have to be called upon that much in the recent series. So yeah, so I'm sure he'll be really motivated to do well in the series.
Well, in the last series, he bowled 100 overs in two test matches in 3 innings. So it just shows you that he's going to probably bowl this. And actually, he was the most, he was the most overs bowled by a bowler in the series.
Yeah.
In that last series, out of the lot. Even Pradaf Jayasuriya only played 1 test. He bowled 52 overs and took 12 wickets. And Nathan Lyon bowled 100 overs for 2 tests. So So it just shows you that definitely not doing much in the Border Gavaskar Trophy will definitely serve Lyon well in this series because he's got to lead the way. And he's got good support there. Kuhnemann and Murphy, if they get a chance, they've done well in India in the past. They've shown themselves to be capable. It'd be interesting to see how that pans out with the spin department there. But Nathan Lyon, definitely the key there for Australia, as well as everyone else in the squad, to try and win this series if they can, and to hopefully win their first series in Sri Lanka since 2011. So that's the test series a little bit. And then obviously we've got 2 ODIs to follow the test matches, which are basically for Champions Trophy preparation, which is going to happen next month in February in Pakistan and the UAE. There was meant to be 1 ODI, but they decided to add another one.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it was meant to be one.
So why not? They just said, well, one-off ODI doesn't look right. We might as well have 2. So there we go. Add an extra one onto the tour. And just trying to remember. Yes. I'm just trying to remember 2022. Yes, Australia did play T20s and ODIs before that test series.
Yep. They lost the ODI series 3-2.
That's right. Yeah.
I watched a lot of that series. That's why I remember this. But it was a very close series. Like, I think one of the matches they lost by 4 runs.
Dashun Shanaka batted well in that series, I remember.
And they won the T20 series. Actually, they hammered Sri Lanka in the first 2 games. And the third game, they were winning that, and then Dashun Shanaka at the end just started smashing them everywhere. Yeah. In a game, like, kind of out of the blue. That was sort of unexpected. But yeah, so Sri Lanka.
It'll be interesting with that ODI series, because Australia haven't announced a squad for that series.
I imagine it won't be different from the
test squad. No, I don't.
No, the Champions Trophy squad.
Yeah. Sorry, that's right. Yeah, maybe they're going to have some of the test players playing that as well. Maybe, or have a bit of a rest, I suppose, after a long series of 2 test matches. But you would think the squad that they, well, obviously, let's just scrap that. Take that back. They've already announced the Champions Trophy squad anyway, so they will, have those players travel to Sri Lanka and play in those 2 ODIs. They've already named the preliminary squad for that. It hasn't been confirmed officially because of Pat Cummins' doubts with that ankle injury that he was carrying in the series against India. But so they will, that makes sense because they've already announced the squad for that Champions Trophy, which hasn't been confirmed, but you would think it's the squad for the Champions Trophy. We'll play in those 2 ODIs to get a bit of preparation in before that Champions Trophy, which Australia have won a couple of times in their history. I think they won in 2006 and 2009, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So they've won it a couple of times, Australia, the Champions Trophy. So it's something they would like to win again if they do pretty well this time around. So that's going to follow the test matches, and that's pretty much straightforward in terms of that. Maybe it could be 1-1 in that series, maybe, but really it's not really a series, really, in one-day cricket terms, isn't it? It's not a 3-game series, so it doesn't really matter who wins or loses, I suppose. It's preparation for Champions Trophy, so it'd be interesting. Maybe 1-1, maybe 2-0, who knows? We'll have to wait and see when those games take place. Your thoughts on that, Jehan, quickly, with that 2 ODIs? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the silver lining is the conditions are going to be similar. Well, mostly similar to what they face in Pakistan. The ball probably turn a bit more. I think the pitches in Pakistan will probably be a lot flatter. But yeah, I suppose they're going to be slow and low. They can get used to that low kind of bounce. But yeah, as you say, it's just going to be preparation for the Champions Trophy. Honestly, I'm not that confident about Australia in the Champions Trophy. It's just that they haven't played a lot of ODIs recently together. The last time they played, it was a second string team that lost quite convincingly. It's going to be
And
foreign.
then before that, they played in England, which they won that series.
No, they did well in England. They played well in England. They played well in England. That's true.
Despite the challenges that they faced in that series.
So whether they're able to muster up the same kind of how they played in England, whether they're able to play like that again in this series and then in the Champions Trophy, I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see.
Yep.
Yeah, I think conditions is a big thing as well. So playing those 2 games in Sri Lanka will only be a good thing. That will help them in preparation for what they'll face in Pakistan. I had a look at the groups the other day, and they're in the group of death, as they call it, the harder group in any case. So yeah, we'll just have to see how they do. I think their first game is against England. If they can beat England, win that first game, then they.
Well, I think anyone can beat England now. At the start of the Brendan McCullum baseball, white ball version of baseball.
Yeah. So if they get off to a good start, then they're always going to be a chance. Like they're a good side, but
it's only 3 games in a Champions Trophy. It's a short tournament.
Yeah,
the last time in 2017, they didn't do so well. That was back in England.
They didn't do well in 2013 either. But 13 and 17 both in England. Those tournaments. Yeah. So I mean, they're a good team. They're a good squad.
I suppose on the other hand as well, it's a Champions Trophy after all. So, it's not held in the highest regard, if that makes perfect sense. Because Australia have already won the World Cup, and that's higher than the Champions Trophy. Champions Trophy is just basically a
mini World Cup.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah, but at the same time, it would be good to have the Champions Trophy again. Like they haven't had it for 16 years now. And if you have both the World Cup and the Champions Trophy, then you can claim to be the best ODI side in the world. But I think the problem is they just don't play enough ODI cricket. And you're going into the tournament in foreign conditions. So I think it's really going to depend on how well they start. If they start off well, they can probably build on that confidence, get used to conditions, and they can be a challenger for the semi-finals and final. But yeah, we'll just have to see. I think historically Australia struggled in Champions Trophies up until Ricky Ponting was in charge and basically said we're going to win this tournament, like no matter what. And that's when they first won in 2006. Because that knockout format, it used to be only knockout. It used to be purely knockout, and then it became a bit of a league stage followed by knockout. But they at some stage early on they tended to get knocked out. But yeah, we'll wait and see. I mean, it's still a great team. It's a great squad. We know what they did in the World Cup. So I will be following the tournament. I want them to do well, but let's just say this is one of the rare times I'm going to say I'm not entirely confident they're going to do too well.
Well, yeah, we shall have to wait and see. It's also in Pakistan as well.
Yes.
That's a bit of a different unknown quantity. They haven't hosted a tournament for a very long time in Pakistan. Not since the World Cups back in the day, I don't think.
Let's put it this way: if they played a lot of ODIs this season, maybe a tri-series after the Test series, or even before, or maybe a 5-match series against India or Pakistan, instead of those 3 that they played against Pakistan and lost early on in the season when they weren't even playing their full strength side. If they had a lot of practice leading into, played a lot of games leading into this, I'd be more confident. But unfortunately, that's just not been the case because I suppose the season's ended early as well because they're going over to Sri Lanka, which, for the home international season to finish at the end of the New Year's Test match, that's got to be a first, I think. That's probably the earliest it's ever ended from memory.
Yes. for a while, yes.
Yeah, and that's probably so that they were able to fit in the test matches in Sri Lanka. So, I just they had a good. You're right. They played well in England. The UK tour, they did really well there. If they're able to bring back that kind of form, then they should do well. But it remains to be seen.
Well, what we know with Australia is that they want to win, so they'll try and win this tournament. But I suppose if they don't win, then it's not a big deal, if that makes sense, because it's a Champions Trophy and no one really has the Champions Trophy in the same regard as a World Cup, obviously.
I'll tell you,
if Sri Lanka or West Indies. No, sorry, the West Indies are not in the tournament; they didn't qualify. But if like Sri Lanka win or something like that, then I would be happy. Or South Africa, someone different for a change.
I'll tell you who's desperate to win this tournament, and I know this from various comments I've read around YouTube. India.
Yeah.
They've marked this down as a tournament that's going to be theirs.
Yes, well,
had so many disappointments in recent years.
Yes, they had that final against Pakistan in 2017 at the Oval, and we all know what happened there.
Well, they got destroyed.
Yeah. And then in 2013 against England, they were able to win at Edgbaston in that rain-shortened game. And
it was a bit of a choke from England.
Of the England side in that game.
Yeah, that was a bit of a choke from England. They had that game won and messed it up in the last few couple of days.
Yes, they did, and then India got over the line and they were able to win the Champions Trophy. So they haven't won for quite a long time, more than 10 plus years. So they'll be hoping to win again. But as we know, with the situation with Pakistan and India, they're going to be playing their games in the UAE. So going to be difficult on teams in that group, obviously, to travel to the UAE and play games there against India. But that's difficult circumstances, and obviously to make the tournament work, they had to do that. So that is the way it is going. So, yeah.
I feel like that could be a little bit disruptive to India. If all the other teams are playing in one country and they have to keep ducking across to the Middle East to play their games.
Yeah, it's a very difficult situation, as we know. But you would think after what happened in the World Cup, where Pakistan were allowed to go to India, you would think probably India could return the favor, probably. But that hasn't been the case. And we know why, the circumstances there. So I suppose
it's all politics. It's all tittle-tattle politics.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult sort of thing, really, between the two countries. But in order for the Champions Trophy to work, they had to go down this route, which was the option that was given to both countries, and they agreed on it. So there we go. And that's just the way it goes. But yeah, definitely, if you have to play India in the UAE and then go back to Pakistan, it can be a bit challenging. Which group is India in? Obviously Australia's group, I'm guessing.
I think they're in Pakistan's group, aren't they?
Sorry, they're in the first group, are they?
Yeah.
That's true. That would be right.
Yeah. So. So India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and New Zealand. And then Group B is England, Australia, Afghanistan, and South Africa. So that's why everyone's saying Group B is going to be the toughest of the groups.
Well, judging by what Afghanistan did to Australia in that World Cup match 2 years ago, you would probably say that group with South Africa and Australia and England could be a tough group.
Yeah.
But with the first group, obviously Pakistan and India, going to be challenging for those teams to travel back and forth between the UAE and Pakistan. But I suppose you just have to adapt with the circumstances. Yeah, but no doubt it should be a good tournament.
Looking at this, so basically India playing all their games in Dubai. Yeah. So actually, it's not going to disrupt them that much because they're going to be there the whole time.
Yeah.
whereas Bangladesh, Pakistan, and New Zealand are going to have to go there for travel there for them.
Yeah, go there for one
yeah.
game and then come back. So
Yeah,
it's going to be a bit challenging for them.
But that's not going to affect England, Australia, or South Africa,
No.
or Afghanistan, because they're all going to be in
Pakistan.
Pakistan.
So that would be pretty simple for Group B or Group 2, depending on what the names they use for the groups.
Just looking at this is so ridiculous, right? So basically, there's going to be 2 semi-finals, one in Dubai and one in Lahore. And if India make the semi-final, they have to play in Dubai. And then the final is also the same. It's either Lahore or Dubai. But if India make the final, it has to be in Dubai.
Yeah. Well, that's just how they've agreed to accommodate India in this tournament. So it just comes down to the circumstances and obviously, between the two countries, as we've known for a long time. So that's just the way it goes, and you just have to adapt, I suppose. But nonetheless, it could be who knows who could make the final for that Champions Trophy. We don't know. And that's the beauty of it, I suppose, in a tournament like this. You just don't know who's gonna make it.
Well, but, you know what? I used to enjoy the Champions Trophies back in the day.
Because they were pretty good. I always remember. I think they're bringing it back for this Champions Trophy. You're gonna wear the blazer if you win, the white coat. I think they're gonna bring that back. I remember Australia winning and wearing those white jackets and lifting up the Champions Trophy back in the day. Yeah. So they're gonna bring that back, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they've all been good tournaments. Like the very first one was in Bangladesh, and South Africa won it. If you can believe this, South Africa. You know who they played in the final?
Who?
The West Indies. And the West Indies actually dominated most of the tournament and then lost in the final. And then 2000, it was Australia got knocked out by India. That's when Yuvraj Singh made his debut. And I remember Brett Lee bowling at Sachin. So Sachin Tendulkar took on McGrath, and then Brett Lee came on for his first change and got Tendulkar out. But they did enough to beat Australia, and I think that was a little bit unexpected at the time. They got into the final again, and then they lost to New Zealand when India were expected to win. And I think like Chris Cairns got 100, and it was like this unexpected run chase right at the end, like that went into the 49th or 50th over. So that was a good tournament. And then
one of New Zealand's first ever.
I think that's
only one.
I think that's the only tournament,
obviously, World Test Championship.
Oh yeah, that's the only white ball tournament they've won internationally. Then 2002 was in Sri Lanka, and
that was shared, wasn't it?
That was shared because rain they had 2 final dates booked, and rain ruined both of them. So that was shared.
Sri Lanka and India shared the trophy at the end, and then 2004 was England. A couple of years later.
2004 was the West Indies.
No, in terms of the hosting nation.
Oh yes, yeah. So England was
but the West Indies won. Yeah.
England was supposed to win that. Like they did everything to. It was at home. They were playing well, and I don't know how they lost it. I think West Indies were chasing 215 or something, and they were 160 for 8. And then that 10th, 9th wicket partnership put on like 50 or something to win the match.
It's also the same Champions Trophy that Australia played the USA in Southampton.
Yes,
called them out for nothing, really.
Yeah, for 50 odd. And England knocked out Australia in the semi-final, I think it was. And that was a good Australian side. That sort of they chased down over 250, I think, 260 maybe, to knock them out. Got into the final, and then I can't remember who West Indies beat in the semi. Oh, they beat Pakistan in the semi, and then no one was expecting the West Indies to win, and then when they did, and that was dramatic because it was September. It was middle of September, or end of September in England, cloudy, like the lights fading, and they win like at that time as it's going dark. So that was quite kind of dramatic. And then Australia won in 2006 in India, and there was a bit of controversy during the, I don't know if you remember this, but during the celebrations at the end of during the presentation, at the end of the tournament, where the Indian BCCI chairman stood up on the stage, and Damien Martin like pushed him off the stage to take a photo so that they could get a photo. So that was quite dramatic. Yeah, and then 2009 under Ponting, they won that in South Africa. I think Shane Watson scored 100 in the semi-final and the final. So that was pretty good. And then, we've actually only had, since then, we've only had two, and that was 2013 and 2017. So it's actually been a while since we've had a Champions Trophy.
Yes, 8 years.
8 years, okay. So almost a decade, yeah.
Well, yeah, it was gone. They scrapped it, and then they said, "Oh, we'll bring it back."
Yeah.
So there you go. I
think
everyone.
It always tends to bring up like drama. It always tends to bring up like really competitive games and tournaments.
I think because of the nature of the tournament too, because you only got 3 games in the group, and you can't afford to drop 1 or 2 games, and then you're out.
Yeah.
That's what happened to Australia in 2017.
Yeah.
I think the only game that Australia won in that tournament was against Bangladesh, I think.
Yeah, it was one of those tournaments where they got really heavily affected by rain, I think.
Rain as well, in that Champions Trophy as well, and that didn't help Australia's cause. But yeah, I suppose the nature of the tournament itself, and you get these sort of close games and finishes and that as well. And crazy to think the USA was in that Champions Trophy of 2004, and 20 odd years later, they've defeated Pakistan in the T20 World Cup, and things have changed. And I think Ricky Ponting made some comments as well after that game.
Yeah, I was going to say he sort of complained about that and said, "I don't think these sort of teams should be playing in these."
Well, I think he's changed his tune already because he's one of the coaches in Major League Cricket. So I don't think he's saying that anymore.
Is he really? That's funny.
Washington Freedom.
Okay, right, interesting. Yeah.
So I think he's changed his tune after 20 odd years, Punter. after that.
With these coaching gigs, when money's involved, people take coaching.
You change your tune quickly, and well, that was 20 years ago, so I think everyone's forgotten it, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, he did make some comments there. But they've come a long way, US cricket, and doing some good work there, as we know. Jehan, of course, because of Nick and Gabe, of course, Cricket for Americans and other Americans like them getting into the sport, which is fantastic, and good to see the US back in a major tournament, which was the case last year in the T20 World Cup in the USA and Caribbean, which they did pretty well to make it to the Super 8s and did what they did there. It was pretty extraordinary. So associate cricket making leaps and bounds. And I suppose Champions Trophy, just something I thought of, maybe you should include some associate nations as well. Maybe, possibly, as an opportunity. I don't know. Maybe something to probably ponder about in the future, I suppose, with the tournament going in the years to come. But
I think you can probably have a qualifying tournament just before that's hosted in the same country.
It's sort of like the 50 over World Cup, in Zimbabwe, for example, when that happens. So that could be something that we could ponder about going forward, about associate countries playing one-day cricket and qualifying for World Cups or Champions Trophies and that. But the process for qualifying for World Cups for associate nations is a bit difficult for a 50 over World Cup than it is for a T20 World Cup. Completely different formats and structures and qualifying tournaments.
I'm all for cricket being spread to all corners of the globe. I am completely against the notion that it should be just an exclusive club within certain Commonwealth countries, which is the way it's been for 150 years. So I think that's something that needs to change. That sort of attitude needs to change, I mean.
Yeah, and it's starting to, because I've interviewed so many people in the Associate Cricket Series on the podcast, as you would know, Jehan.
Yeah.
And many people think about these countries and associate them with cricket and say, really? They play cricket in these countries? They do. Even people in St. Helena, sorry, so you say it, which is a small island off the coast of the African continent. And it's a British territory, but they play cricket.
Yeah.
And it's probably one of the smallest countries in the associate world by, in terms of it being an island, but they play cricket. And I've spoke to them recently about cricket over there, and it's fantastic work that they're doing over there. But they have a lot of challenges, as it is being an island and traveling from the mainland to the island, of course. And, many of the challenges that they face there and players and the population size and, there's difficulties there. But they always find a way, the associate nations, to make a difference. And a lot of them want to play in one-day cricket as well, play 50 overs and qualify for the 50-over World Cup, as well as a T20 World Cup, which is a lot easier in terms of the qualification process.
Yeah.
So maybe, that could be something that we look at and improve on, I suppose, in terms of the process with associate nations. But 100% agree with you there, Jehan. It's all about including everyone in the world, really, because there's 96 members of the ICC that make up the associate world. If you combine the 12 full-member nations, that's over 100 members. So that's quite a lot of countries, and that's continuing to grow and grow on a day-to-day basis. Hopefully, we see many more countries get into the fold. But tournaments and giving people opportunities is the way to go. And associate countries have created so many highlights. Who remembers what Ireland did in those World Cups in 2007, 2011? Afghanistan, they made it to a semi-final of a T20 World Cup last year. And what they did in the 50-over World Cup as well. And they were a former associate nation, now a full member. But you've seen the Netherlands, for example, defeating South Africa twice in a 50-over World Cup and a T20 World Cup.
Yeah.
In 2022, 2023 was fantastic to see.
The Netherlands
even Scotland. I forgot about Scotland. They've had some good wins.
The Netherlands have defeated England twice in T20.
Yes, they have. They have. Quite an interesting stat about England is that they have not beaten a European team in a World Cup. And they've lost to the Netherlands twice.
Yeah.
And that's
the first time was off the last ball of the match. The second time they got thrashed.
It wasn't the first one was obviously 2009 T20 World Cup at Lord's.
2009, yeah.
The second one was at 2014, I think it was, wasn't it?
I think it was, Bangladesh, I think.
Yeah, they lost.
England got bowled out for 80 or something, chasing 140.
And the Netherlands managed to do it twice.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting stat about England. They have not beaten a European team in a World Cup to this day. So hopefully that record changes if other European teams are in the World Cup. So we shall see. But it just creates those memories, really. It does, really, with the associate world.
Yeah.
And even Uganda, T20 World Cup last year. They defeated PNG, another associate nation, but it was a very close game. It was a low-scoring affair. And we recently spoke to Ugandan cricket, Dennis Masali there, about that. And it was a game changer in terms of the country. The country woke up at early hours of the morning because it was such an enthralling game and tournament, obviously, to see Uganda at a major tournament. So to see them win and to do well means a lot for Uganda as a country, because they don't have many other sporting achievements as a country. But cricket is certainly one of them, and certainly making an impact. So the associate world is certainly building and developing and growing, which is fantastic for the game. And we digressed a little bit from our original point about the Champions Trophy, but to finish off about that, for Australia, the 2 ODIs against Sri Lanka, preparation for that Champions Trophy. Hopefully, they can get some good preparation and do well in the Champions Trophy. But, it's not the end of the world if Australia don't win the Champions Trophy. It's sort of that, which one do you have higher? Do you have the World Cup higher than the Champions Trophy? I think many people would say that. So I don't think it would matter all that much, given Australia's schedule for this year. But it's a tournament. Australia would like to win another tournament and have another Champions Trophy in the trophy cabinet. It's getting quite full at Cricket Australia headquarters. I think at the MCG they had display of all the trophies they've won in bilateral series in Test cricket. They had a few out there. A few trophies that you would not remember, like the Southern Cross Trophy against Zimbabwe, which hasn't been contested for 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So
was that since Matthew Hayden's 380 off, was it?
Pretty much. Yeah. Southern Cross Trophy, it's called. That's the trophy between Australia and Zimbabwe. They had that on display. And then they had the one with Australia and Bangladesh when they played the top-end test matches back in the early 2000s. 3 mobile series back in the day. Yeah, they had that on display as well. They had the Mace. They had the Border Gavaskar Trophy, the Ashes, of course, the Trans-Tasman Trophy for New Zealand, the Beno Kadir Trophy for Australia and Pakistan. And that was about it, really. And the Warren Murali Trophy, of course. Another one there. So they had them on display. I think Cricket Australia gave the MCG those trophies for the day, I suppose, to see how many trophies Australia have won currently.
Yeah.
With that stat about holding every bilateral trophy in Test cricket, which is quite amazing when you think about it. But even trophies that you would forget about, especially against Bangladesh and Zimbabwe. Hopefully, Australia will play Test matches against them in Australia again, because it's been too long. It's been like 20 odd years since they've come out here and toured. So hopefully that's the case going forward, as we've already discussed with Test cricket early on in this Cricket Ramblings episode, Jehan. But to finish off about Sri Lanka and Australia Test series, probably going to be another competitive series. Let's hope for competitive cricket. Both teams are capable of winning the series. And let's hope that's the case this time around. Could be a similar pattern as it was 3 years ago, but Australia will be looking to win the series, even though there's not too much pressure on them to win, given that they've already qualified for WTC final against South Africa. But we hope for a competitive series and just to see some good cricket, I suppose, across the 2 test matches. It's a shame that it's not 3 tests, but we all know the reasons why for that. It's been well documented for some time. So let's hope it's a good series and let's hope Australia can get the job done. But we shall have to wait and see, Jehan, once the 2 test matches are done in Galle in Sri Lanka.
I'm looking forward to it. I think it will be a good series. And also I've kind of, after the end of the Border Gavaskar Trophy, after that being such a high, you're sort of looking forward to the next cricket that was going to be on. I was like, when's that going to be? Okay, around a month from now. Okay, great. I'm looking forward to that. And now, it's only next week, only a few days away.
Yeah, no, it's not too far away. So it's certainly crept up on us, but hopefully, some more cricket to enjoy. After what was a good Border Gavaskar Trophy, to see Australia play overseas is a good thing. And it's at a reasonable time as well in Australia. In the afternoon, early evening, it's a good time. It's not like it's been played in England early hours in the morning, which is a bit of a difficulty, but a reasonable time for Australia to watch it. And it's on Channel 7 as well, which is good, free to air, so everyone can access it, which is fantastic.
No, should be good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
hopefully Australia can get the chocolates and keep the Warren Murali Trophy, I should say, in their possession.
I have a little fear. I have a bit of a feeling that they're going to win.
Yeah, they've definitely got a good chance of doing that. It's just whether or not which Sri Lankan team's going to turn up.
Yes, that's also very true. Yeah.
Depends, are they going to be the team that won 2-0 against New Zealand last year, or the team that's going to crumble and under the pressure? So we'll have to wait and see. But you can't write off Sri Lanka. They're always fighters, and they always punch above their weight in the cricket world. So, let's hope it's a competitive series. Well, Jehan, thank you for joining me today for this Cricket Ramblings episode. I've enjoyed it immensely. It's been a marathon, and we've spoke for over 4 hours. And what people don't realize...
I thought it was going to be an hour to an hour and a half, but I was very wrong about that.
I think we were both very wrong about that, Jehan. Not a surprise when you're talking cricket. And what people don't realize is that we're actually recording this at night. And Jehan and I are in different parts of Australia. He's in Perth, which is 2.5 hours behind South Australia, where I am. And it's like nearly 4 o'clock in the morning here. And in Perth, it's
1:20 in the morning here.
1:20 in the morning. So you can... And we started this at 8:30 Perth time, which is like 11 o'clock here in South Australia. So it's been a long marathon, Jehan, but we've gotten through it, and I've enjoyed it immensely. And to discuss these topics at length with you, as always. And we've always had good discussions in the past, in the 2 previous episodes we've done on Australian cricket, which are available to watch and listen on the podcast for people to enjoy, where Jehan has come on the podcast before to discuss Australian cricket, various topics within Australian cricket with me. So you can catch those episodes on the podcast on the YouTube channel, which are available for everyone to watch and listen. And please do, because they were very good episodes that me and Jehan did at the time to discuss all things Australian cricket. Let us know your thoughts on the topics we discussed in this Cricket Ramblings episode in the comments. We would love to hear what you have to say on the topics that we discussed today in this Cricket Ramblings episode on the Border Gavaskar Trophy, Test cricket, promotion and relegation, the Sri Lanka and Australia Test series. We'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments. So please do write in on your thoughts on those various topics. Before we go, remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Also, the podcast is available on Anchor, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. Once again, thank you, Jehan, for joining me today for this Cricket Ramblings episode. I hope all of you watching or listening to this Cricket Ramblings episode with Jehan and I enjoyed hearing our thoughts on the topics that we discussed in this episode. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.